I'm Primal Piggy. Thank you for joining me for another BDSM United podcast. Today, I want to talk about books. I really love books, and books have been a big part of my life for a number of years. I've had to discard and throw away numerous books in my life. I've had to give away, sell, and just maybe even burn some of the books of my past. But, as I've gone through life, some of the things that I've probably been into were useless rubbish and well deserving of being burned. But today I wanted to give you my personal book recommendations. These are some of the books that I teach from and just some of the books in my library. In my library is quite a few BDSM books, the leftovers of quite a large theological library, and the quite a big occult library as well. And so today I'm going to talk about the BDSM books. The first book that I bought, BDSM book, was The Loving Dominant. A lot of beginning books are heavy on toys and techniques, or just act like a dictionary to define terminology. I like that this book, The Loving Dominant, had some of those things, but it was also largely about relationships. And I feel like it got me off on the right foot within BDSM. People have feelings, they aren't just kink vending machines. Uh, my next book is being polyamorous and in two different relationships. More than two was extremely helpful. Having healthy relationships, taking ownership of my own feelings, and just overall becoming more sex and body positive were all results of this book. Now, I didn't automatically become a relationship expert. I didn't get everything right. There was quite a bit of emphasis on a type of polyamory called relationship anarchy that kind of got me in trouble at the very beginning because I was just looking at things that way. But what I found out was more helpful. It was polyamory fidelity in my polyamorous relationships, in which I've settled into now. But I personally think that this book would be helpful for anyone who is part of an established couple, an established relationship, and thinks either of them will ever play or scene with others. Not just adding other people into your relationship, but also anyone who plays or scenes with others would benefit from the book more than two. Now, my ultimate favorite books, BDSM books of all time, were written by Robert J. Rubel. He has a series of 5 books, all of which I highly recommend. He has other books too, books on protocol and different things. Some of his earlier works that I would recommend if you become a fanboy of Robert Rubel like me. But he writes with such clarity, uh, which I appreciate, and his books really aren't filled with a ton of fluff. I think that you'll really learn a lot of useful things by reading them. Let me go through his 5 books. And I would really start at the first one and then work toward 5. 1, BDSM Mastery Basics. It's your guide to play, parties, and scene protocols. This is really the first book of his that you need to find and buy. Second is BDSM Mastery Relationships, a guide for creating mindful relationships for dominants and submissives. If you want to understand BDSM play, then the basics book is for you. If you want to understand BDSM relationships, then that second BDSM Mastery Relationships book is your go to. You will learn more out of these 2 books than most people know already within BDSM. Number three, Master Slave Mastery. It hits an updated handbook of concepts, approaches, and practices. Definitely, you should eventually, it's a more intermediate book, but it's definitely something to check out because a lot of times you can borrow some of the concepts from MS relationships and borrow some of them for your DS relationship or DDLG relationship. Number four, Master Slave Mastery Advanced, rekindling the fire and ideas that matter. This is actually one of his books that I don't have. I do eventually would like to get, but from the parts that I've read of it, the preview parts, it's an excellent book. Number five, Master Slave Mastery Protocols, focusing the intent of your relationship. This is another great one that you can, it's kind of more of an updated version of his earlier work on protocols. And I just think that it is the bee's knees. It's a great book. And lastly, the last one I want to recommend is when you're ready for something a little bit more intermediate, we recommend The Ritual of Dominance and Submission by David English. It's about training, about rituals, protocol, and a whole lot more. It's one of the books I teach out of. And so it's definitely that and Robert Rubel's books are definitely ones that I go to as teaching resources. Another great book that I'll also mention is Peter Master's book, The Control Book. If you're a dominant person, you'll definitely want to check that one out. You'll also, if you're on a submissive or you want to understand submissives, I would recommend Slavecraft. I would recommend the book Real Service by Joshua Tenpenny and Raven Caldera. I would recommend any of Raven Caldera's books. He has a lot on spirituality and such. Great books. Just trying to think if there was anything else that I would throw in there. I think that's about it. That about sums up a lot of the really great books that I would highly recommend. I have a lot more in my library, and um, so there's a lot of different ones that I could recommend. If you want a history book, you can try to find Our Lives, Our History. It was put out by MTTA and some of the people at MAST. And so, great book on BDSM history, really thorough, really well researched. And so, I think that just kind of covers it. That's where I would tell you to start if you're looking for book recommendations concerning BDSM. And I gave you kind of some well-rounded ones, some books about relationships and whatnot. Definitely want to give a shout out to a book that I found for my own personal growth called Existential Kink. It was a really great book. Helped me come to terms with some of my personal demons that I now. I love my demons. They're not just demons because they're bad. They're demons because they're good parts of who I am, and they make up, the full picture of who I am. So, anyways, I'm Primal Piggy. You can find all of our resources at www.bdsmunited.com. We've written a lot of great material. We haven't written any books, but we've written a lot of great material. There's a lot of great material in the archives of this podcast, all of which you can find at bdsmunited.com. It's a joy speaking with you today on this topic, and I'll talk with you again soon.